Chapter 35, Molotak Riley's POV. I sat on the kitchen's island, watching Jamie and Dennis wrestle for the last Hershey's chocolate. "Give it to me," Jamie yelled, reaching out a stretched arm for the chocolate that Dennis was stuffing his face into. "Never," Dennis said in between bites. He held the chocolate at arm's length away from Jamie. Sophie came in laughing with Brandon, but she was cut off when she saw the scene in front of her. Riley, do you mind explaining the picture?" Motioning with her hands. "Candy," was all I had to say for her to nod her head in understanding. Then she jumped onto the space next to me while Brandon sat beside her. He wrapped his arm around her waist and she instinctively leaned into him. "So how goes the mating process? Why does everyone want to know about that?" 6 people have already asked me the same question. Well, Haley has always wanted a human daughter. In Lauren, when Ashton had first shared about you, she will not keep it down. She would go on about how her grandchildren would be like. So people are now pressuring you into completing the mating process with Ashton. Sophie concluded. So everyone would be watching my every move. I asked, furrowing my eyebrows. Yes, she nodded firmly. You are now on the hot seat. If Haley pays a lot of attention to you, the whole pack will. Trust me, I've been there. Being the future Luna and all. Brandon chuckled. I remember that. You were so flustered. I was used to it, Sophie said. I then noticed Dennis and Jamie sitting on the floor watching us. Each of them was holding chocolate and looking at us in disapproval. What happened to the chocolate? I asked them. We have came to a conclusion to share it, Dennis said with a mouthful. I don't think having children at such an early age is good for you. Jamie continued. And because you will be getting more attention, does that mean that you won't be spending time with us? Dennis asked. I smiled affectionately at both of them. I would never forget you guys. You are my friends. Notice how she didn't say best friend. Lucy asked, walking in the kitchen. Because that spot is already taken by me. Lucy went to Dennis and took a bite out of his chocolate. Hey, I love you too. Lucy kissed Dennis's cheek. Sometimes, I think you are only dating me for the food I get. He mumbled. Anyways, Lucy turned to me. Wanna come shopping? Sure. I hopped off the island. I could do some walking. I want to come too, Sophie said. Then we might as well get Carly and Sarah, Lucy said. They're coming, Sophie said before Lucy could call them down. I used the pack link. Lucy nodded, looking creeped out. She shook her head, dismissing her thought. This isn't only girls shopping. No guys allowed. What? Dennis and Brandon said in sync. Sorry, Lucy shrugged. Not sorry at all. Girls need their personal time with their friends. Once Carly and Sarah arrived, we took a fairly large convertible to the mall. We blasted songs from the radio and sang from the top of our lungs. We told each other embarrassing stories and laughed the whole way there. I learned that Sarah would get very emotional when she's drunk. Carly had once thought that she was a boy and went into the boys' washroom. That was how she met Jake, and Sophie had kissed random strangers just to get Brandon jealous. Lucy and I shared the pranks we pulled on the boys. Sophie stopped the car at the red light and another car pulled up next to us. That car was packed with hormonal teenage boys. They rolled their windows down and Wolf whistled at us. Good day we're having, eh? The driver said, smirking. He was attractive but not as hot as Ashton. He had sandy blonde hair that was messily styled on his head. His eyes were covered by dark sunglasses and he had a slight British accent. So where are you girls headed? The guy in the passenger seat asked. He had dark hair and light brown eyes. None of your business, Lucy said haughtily. Feisty. The guy smirked. I like that. Lucy rolled her eyes and Sophie started the car as the light turned green. Boys these days, Lucy mumbled. You know how they are. Cocky and arrogant, Sarah said laughing. They're always thinking with the other head. We laughed and nodded our heads in agreement. Once Sophie had parked the car, we got out and went to the entrance. We decided to go to Forever 21 first. We browsed through the clothes, picking some up to try on. We each came out with at least one bag hanging from our arms. We jumped from one shop to another, picking some clothes that we thought suited each other. Then we went to the food court for something to eat. We piled our bags on the floor, beside our chairs, and went to get our food. When we were halfway through our food, a panic-filled scream echoed through the mall. Then the lights were shut off and the mall was pitch black. People began screaming and stumbling around, looking for the exit. Rouge attack, Carly said loudly. I heard Sarah sniff the air. There's too many of them. We can't fight them all off. Go to the back of a store and look for an exit, Sophie commanded. I'll tell the guys. We hurried to the nearest store. Several growls and barks were heard over the screams of the people. They seemed to be getting nearer. They're coming, Sophie told us. Lucy whipped out a gun and got it ready. Riley, do you have your gun? I pulled it out of my boot. Riley and I will shoot whichever wolf comes through. You guys go look for an exit. And FYI, these bullets are not silver. Lucy warned. The first wolf's head that we saw, Lucy immediately pulled the trigger. She got it in the eye, making him stumble backwards and dropping on the ground, dead. As they kept coming, we kept shooting. Found it. Carl Y.'s voice yelled from behind. Come on. Exit. Lucy and I began backing up slowly, our eyes still trained on the door. You could hear several paws hitting the floor. Getting closer. We have the door open. Carly whispered, yelled. Lucy ran to the exit, but something stopped me. I saw a tall figure, calmly standing in the middle of the wolves. None of them were attacking him. He took something out of his pocket and gave it to the nearest wolf, who clamped its jaws over it. It then trotted to me. The rouges parted like the Red Sea, and the wolf walked up to me and dropped the thing at my feet. When I looked back up at the figure, he waved and ran the opposite way. The rouges followed him, and soon, the mall was empty. I bent down to pick up the thing. I quickly pocketed it when I heard footsteps coming. Riley, Lucy yelled, tackling me in a hug. What happened? Sophie asked. What were you thinking? Staying in a building full of rouges? I stayed silent. Riley, Carly called me. Her face appeared in my line of vision. I blinked. Are you Riley? A more masculine voice shouted. I saw Ashton, Brandon, Jake, and Austin running to us. I was engulfed in my mate's arms. Ashton buried his head into the crook of my neck and inhaled my scent. He was shaking, and I rubbed his shoulders comfortingly. When H.E. calmed down, he lifted his head from my neck and kissed me. I was so worried. He mumbled, caressing my face. Are you okay? Where did the rouges go? I am fine. I stuttered. The rouges retreated. My hand hovered over my pocket. I needed to go to Ben. I have to talk to Ben. I rushed out. Ashton's forehead creased in worry. I'm okay. We got everyone into the cars and drove back to the pack house. Haley and Terrence stood in front of the house with Ben, Spencer, Jared, Cole, Jamie and Dennis. Haley and Terrence looked slightly troubled whilst the boys looked confused. I staggered out of the car as Spencer rushed to me. What happened? The Alphas had just told me to wait outside. Did something go wrong? Rouge attack? Ashton answered for me. His jaw was clenched and he had a hard look on his face. Rouges. How did they get inside a mall? Spencer asked. Baffled. That's what we are trying to figure out. Taryn said. No one's hurt. Right. Cole asked. Nope. Lucy said. Well, I'm not sure about those humans. But we are safe. Dennis wrapped his arms around her. As long as you are safe, I don't care about the others. I heard Haley say, IWW. I think they could pull off as true mates. Lucy blushed at the comment and Dennis grinned and thanked her. Cole scowled. Means that I'm Spencer. Well, that sucks. Spencer shot him a dirty look. Watch your mouth or one day you'll wake up with soup in your mouth. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I said loudly. Off topic now, are we? Let's go inside. We'll discuss this over some coffee, Haley said, ushering us into the house. Once all of us was served coffee, we got serious. We were currently in the Alpha's office. It was surprisingly big enough to fit all 17 of us. I was sitting next to Ashton, who had his arm draped over my shoulders protectively. Spencer stood close by, watching us carefully. How did the Rouges get past the patrol? Brandon asked. Sophia's hand rested in his as she leaned into him. Alpha and rubbed a slight stubble on his chin. I don't know, but we have to double the patrol runs. We cannot risk them attacking again, Ben said, taking a sip from his mug. Many people could get hurt and it'll be our fault. So it's the plan? Carly asked. Do we send the girl to pull? I felt my hands tighten and Ben's Adam's apple bobbed up and down as he gulped. No, Lucy said firmly. Not yet. Then when? Austin asked. Lucy's eyes caught mine. When it's time. She'll know when she has to go. But who is she? Ashton asked. Don't we have to know who she is? No, you don't. I said, resting my head on his shoulder. That isn't necessary. What do we do now? Do we wait for them to attack again? Jamie asked. No, Haley said. We have to find where they're hiding. We attack. Get Bridget. We win. Easier said than done. Terrence said. So we wait for the next attack and follow them back. Cole said. This should be easy. Okay, we got a plan. Jamie said, yawning. Now time for a nap. Call me when it's dinner. I knocked on the door softly. I heard rustling from the other side and the door opened. Riley, what are you doing here? Ben asked, making a way for me to come in. I faltered. Jared sat on the couch and he looked surprised to see me. Hey, Riley. His voice slightly strained. What are you doing here? I asked suspiciously. Why are you in Ben's room? Sitting on the couch. Looking guilty. Something's fishy. My eyes widened and I switched my gaze from Ben to Jared. Oh, the both of you gay? What? Ben asked. Alarmed. We were not gay. Jared stuttered. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It's fine if you'll be both gay. I won't judge. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. We're not gay. Ben shook his head in disbelief. I stared at him for a while before deciding that he was telling the truth. Good. Because I think that Bridget would be heartbroken if she found out that her lover was dating a boy. So why are you here? Ben asked, changing the subject. You know how we were attacked at the mall? They nodded their heads. Yeah. I think I saw Paul there. What? Jared's attention was caught. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You know, the guy who's BRI. Yes, I know. Jared cut me off impatiently. But why is he there? I played with my fingers. He gave me something and I haven't checked what it was yet. What? Ben asked, his eyes wide. It could be a bomb. I highly doubt it. We should have exploded by now because it's in my pocket. I took it out and gave it to Ben. He twisted it around in his hands and said, It's a tape. A tape. Jared echoed. Wait. It could be about Bridget. He snatched the tape out of Ben's grasp and played it. The familiar voice of Paul McIntosh began speaking. So I'm guessing that Riley now knows that the supernatural world exists. It was good to see you at the mall. Riley, I hope we can meet up again because the last time I saw you properly, you went flying into Ben. He chuckled and a shiver of disgust ran down my spine. I actually made this tape to encourage you. I am currently sitting in Bridget's cell. She is next to me, unconscious. Apparently, all the hits had drained her. Jared glowered at the recorder. He balled his hands into fists and his jaw was stiff. Then we heard a groan. Looks like our sleeping beauty is awake, Paul said, laughing sadistically. Good morning, princess. How was your beauty sleep? There was a gasp and then a whimper. Answer my question. Paul growled. Then a timid voice said, Very good. I heard Jared's breath get caught in his throat. He brought his hand up to his mouth and bit on his finger. The tape continued. Do you still remember Jared? Paul asked. Yes, of course I do. How could I forget him? Her voice was filled with affection. Jared made a choking noise and bit his finger harder. She remembers me. Jared whispered happily. Cole resumed speaking. You know the times where you said that he was going to save you? Well, he is probably listening to this right now. Jared. Listening. Right now. Incoherent sentences came out of her mouth. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Cole hummed. See, can I talk to him? She asked shyly. Sure. Why not? Paul said enthusiastically. I'm sure HED like to know how you're doing and how you're being treated. Jared's hand twitched. That son of a... Jared, a weak voice said, making Jared shut up and sit forward. Jared, help me, please. I don't know where I am and I'm scared. I don't know how long I've been here either. Please come get me. Jared, I'm scared. There's something that I heard some of them talking about. They are going to kid. Okay. That's enough. Cole yelled. The tape ended with the shrill scream of my cousin. Bridget. Chapter 36. Confessions. Riley's POV. I could not get a wink of sleep. Even though Ashton was cuddled next to me, I couldn't bring myself to close my eyes and relax. I didn't want to wake Ashton up by moving too much, so I stayed as still as I could. I turned my head slightly to check the time. It's at 11:41 p.m. I groaned softly and stared blankly at the ceiling. I sat up, the covers pooling around my waist. I ran my hand through my hair a couple times and went up to the bathroom. I splashed my face with cold water and patted my face dry with a towel. I went back to the bed and saw Ashton looking around frantically. When he saw me, his facial features relaxed. Sorry if I woke you up. I apologized. Sitting on the bed next to him, he wrapped his arms around my waist and pulled me to his side. Is something wrong? I looked at him with a soft smile. How do you know? It's written all over your face. He kissed my cheek. So it's bothering you. I unconsciously traced patterns on his arm. You know, my past isn't such a good one. If you want to leave me after this, go ahead. No one wants to carry extra baggage. I would never leave you. Why? He said softly. I just hope you're right. I said before diving into my story. Everything was normal. Normal people. Normal social life. Normal family. That is until 6 years ago, when my mother was diagnosed with cancer. The doctors couldn't save her in time and she died. During the time when she was alive, my dad was one of the best dads in the world. The best dad a 10-year-old could get. When my mother was in treatment, Spencer, I would hear him crying in his room. When the doctors told us that my mother was dying, he turned to alcohol. Spencer tried making him quit, but my dad would just yell at him. My bottom lip trembled and my eyes became glassy. As my mother slowly died, my father went to the hospital less frequently. He slowly became abusive to me and Spencer was my only protector. We would often go to the hospital to visit my mother, but when she died we couldn't go to a safe place anymore. My dad would lock himself in his room for days and only come out for food or to get alcohol. If he ever caught me alone, HED just hit me until Spencer comes back from school. A tear balanced on my eyelash, threatening to spill. I quickly wiped it away, not wanting Ashton to see me in a pathetic state. His arms tight and around me and he kissed my temple. You don't have to continue. If you don't want to. I shook my head. I have to tell him. To get this off my chest. 2 years ago, Spencer and I were walking in the park because my dad went to drink beer with his friends. He went to get me ice cream from the store nearby, but I wandered into an alleyway. I still have no idea how I got there. I didn't know anyone back then, so when I saw Ben, I was terrified. He was drunk out of his mind, and he slurred his words. He tried to rape me, what? Ashton was about to jump out of the bed, but I put a hand on his leg, stopping him. Wait, you haven't let me finish, I said firmly. He reluctantly eased back onto the bed and brought me back to his chest. His arms circled protectively around me. Spencer found Ben cornering me and he lunged at him. Spencer was winning when these other guys came. Spencer yelled at me to run home and I did. I knew I shouldn't have, but I was too scared to think. I waited all night for Spencer to knock on my door and tell me that he was safe. He never came home. I began searching for him whenever I could. I gave up after 9 months of searching. Then, after much moving, I joined Kingston High. Ashton smiled at a memory. I remember first seeing you across the parking lot. My wolf was howling for me to mate you. You were so beautiful that I almost lost control of my wolf. I blushed. I'm so glad you're my mate. He kissed me tenderly on my lips. I smiled and cupped his face, bringing him closer to me. He pulled away to ask me a question. How did you find Spencer again, I was at a bar and I saw Justin with the boys. I was originally looking for someone, but when I saw Ben, I tried attacking him. He knocked me out and made the boys bring me back to the hideout. That's where I found Spencer. Hideout, Ashton echoed. The place where all the gang stuff happened, I said shortly. Was that where you were when you were missing? He asked thoughtfully. Yes, sorry for making you worry. I smiled apologetically. You apologize a lot. Ashton kissed my forehead. And you kiss me a lot. I retaliated. You like my kisses. Ashton said, kissing my nose. Whoever said that? Me. He smashed his lips onto mine. I giggled and kissed him back as fiercely. We must be moved whilst kissing because I don't remember straddling him. We broke apart and I rested my forehead on his. I closed my eyes, basking in the moment. Since you went through all the trouble of tell that to me, I'll tell you what I had already known. Ashton said. Firstly, when you were gone, I went to your house. When your dad answered the door, I asked him if you were home. He told me you ran away and I found out that he was abusing you. I know. I'm slow. Then when you came back, it was after the carnival. Nathan and I kinda stalked you back to your house. I did it because you had told me that Spencer was dead and then it's alive again. So I followed you and then I saw a bunch of teens with Silver. Silver being my weakness. I got suspicious. And then not long ago, I found out that my girlfriend is a gang member. And I found out that my boyfriend is a werewolf. I fired back. Touch, you've known my past for all this time. I asked incredulously. Why didn't you tell me? Ashton shrugged. I wanted you to tell me. I didn't want to force you to tell me. I kissed his jaw. Thank you. He growled appreciatively. You know I would never do anything to hurt you or make you feel uncomfortable. Right. I nodded. That's why you were the best boyfriend a girl could ask for. I then climbed off of him and of under the covers. I rolled around until the blankets were tightly hugging my figure, making me look like a caterpillar. I'm so tired. I yawned loudly. Yes, you can just take all the blankets away, Ashton said, rolling his eyes. Use your werewolf heat or something. I mumbled. They'll just use you to keep me warm. His arm circled around my waist and pulled me to his side. He kissed the top of my head and muttered a good night. I closed my eyes and this time, sleep welcomed me with open arms. My arms and legs shot out, stretching out my sore limbs. My hand had connected with something hard, making me recoil it. I heard a deep groan and Ashton's head came into my vision. He was holding his nose with his hand. Wincing. Did I hit you? I mumbled sleepily. He removed his hand from his nose. I placed my thumb and forefinger on the bridge of his nose and rubbed softly. Is it better now? Much better. I retracted my hand, making him whine and protest. I ignored his complaints and swung my legs off the bed. The sheets had somehow untangled themselves from me and are now lying on the floor. Before my feet could touch the ground, a pair of strong arms went around my waist and pulled me back to a fern chest. Ashton placed an open kiss on my neck and I gasped lightly. Don't go. He mumbled like a little child. Stay with me. I don't want to go outside. His arms tightened around me, preventing me from movement. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I half-threatened wee wind. Truthfully, I didn't want to go out either. Fine. We will sleep for 5 more minutes, yes. Ashton cheered quietly, his breath tickling my ear. I hushed him. In trying to sleep. Yes, dear. Shut up. I twisted around in his arms and smacked him lightly. I buried my head in his neck and breathed in his comforting smell. I repeatedly kissed the crook of his neck, making him growl in warning. Why? Tu es agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. His breath coming in short breaths. You have to stop doing what you're doing. It's driving my wolf crazy. I don't know if he'll be able to control him when he takes over. He panted. You mean finish the mating process? A cheaty mark you then mate to you. Okay. 5 minutes are up. Time to go to practice. I got off the bed before Ashton could catch me again. Sam had been released from the hospital yesterday. Edward was also being very protective of her, holding her hand as they walked. He was always glued to her side. I'm right now walking with Lucy to the kitchen. I had previously went to visit Justin, who was very excited about being released within a week. He found Lucy sitting beside him. We talked for a few minutes before we had to get ready for training. Lucy had just opened the door when an egg whizzed past us. She scrambled back and hid behind the door frame. We exchanged surprised looks and peeked into the kitchen. What I saw surprised me. All 5 of the Slade children were having a massive food fight in the middle of the kitchen. Jake and Austin were chasing each other around the island, throwing clouds of flour around. Ashton was wrestling Brandon on the slick ground. Jessica stood a few feet away cackling and flinging eggs at whoever got close to her. Wow. Lucy breathed out. This is such a mess. You can say that again, Sophie said, appearing beside us. We jumped. When did you get here? I was here for a while. She shrugged like she said it every day. Won't they get in trouble? This is their ritual, Sophie said. They do it at least once a month. Only the Slade children do it. They will continue throwing food until Haley comes to scream at them. We watched as Jake and Austin dogpiled Jessica. They pinned her arms to her sides so she couldn't do anything. She shrieked and focused her eyes on a jug of milk. It began levitating. It wobbled in the air before it got steady. Jessica made the jug float over Jake, who was at the top laughing heavily. She blinked and the jug tipped over. Jake yelled in surprise and scrambled away. He shook his head rapidly. Milk droplets flying everywhere. No magic. Well, your fat bit was on me, Austin scoffed. I'm not that fat. Jessica rolled her eyes. You have no idea. Sophie chuckled. They have rules. Jessica can't use magic. Only when Haley tells them to clean up. Jessica resets everything so all the food would be placed where it once was. Untouched. The boys don't like it when she uses her powers for food fights. If she used too much, she would clean everything up and she would be very weak. Her powers increase every day, and she learns something new every time. Our heads snapped back to the siblings and saw Ashton dumping a bag of flour on Jessica. Brandon then took a stick of butter and stuck it onto Jake's head. Austin was trying to get off the slippery ground, but he always fell when he stood up straight. Here comes Mama Slade, I said, pointing to Haley, who was storming her way to the kitchen. You could see steam pouring out of her ears. She sent us a quick apologetic look before making her way into the kitchen. What's happening? She shrieked. The Slades froze. Food fight, Jessica said meekly. Why now? Haley asked, stressing out. It's ritual, Mom, Jake said, slinging an arm over his twin, who slipped again and they both crashed to the ground. Haley rubbed her forehead and mumbled, Why do my children have to be religious? I laughed softly. I better go help her. Sophie patted our backs and went to stand beside Haley. Go clean up, she commanded. Jessica, no using magic to clean. The boys have to clean up themselves in the kitchen. You and Austin go to the mall and get more food. What? Brandon pouted like a child. But Jessica always uses magic. Can't she do it now? Sophie crossed her arms. You boys have to grow up and not depend on your little sister. She may be younger, but she is definitely much more responsible. Anyways, look at her. She's all tired and is about to fall over any moment. Sophie pointed to Jessica, who was in her feet. Jessica pointed to herself. Me tired? Never. I can clean all of this in a jiffy. She closed her eyes and furrowed her eyebrows. Some cups and broken plates began reforming. She bit her lip hard and concentrated. Eggs and flour began gathering up to their original form. She then lifted her hands and beads of sweat started to cover her forehead. Forks and spoons began flying. Brooms and mops cleaning the floor. Then she dropped her hands and sighed defeatedly. She leaned backwards and lost her footing. Luckily, Ashton was behind her and caught her easily. He asked, brushing the hair away from her face. She had passed out. Haley approached her daughter, alarmed. Jessica, baby, are you okay? Mom, she's out, Brandon said. Lucy went and I followed. Lucy took Jessica's wrist, checking for a pulse. She's fine, Lucy said, making the everyone's eye in relief. She must be used to much energy. Sophie Tutty, told you so. She needs to rest, Lucy said after doing a few more tests. You're your doctor? Jack asked in surprise. Basic knowledge, Lucy shrugged. CPR, getting a bullet out of someone's body, getting the heart to work, etc., etc. Doesn't seem so basic to me. Brandon muttered. I might read a couple more medical books when I was bored. Lucy said, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I gaped at her. You said it was boring. She winced. Sorry. It got really interesting. I was hooked on it. I am so not talking to you about this right now. I faced away from her. Once Brandon, Sophie, and Haley took Jessica to the pack doctor for further inspection. The boys began clean up. Haley insisted, but only the boys did the cleanup and I should go out to get something to eat. I did. I went to Subway and got a sandwich with Lucy, just as we were about to open the front door. It swung open. Dennis had his keys in one and the other had his wallet. You went to get food without me, he said in disbelief. We got an extra sandwich that's not for you. Lucy said, get your own sandwich. Dennis frowned playfully. My girlfriend is so caring. Lucy rolled her eyes and held out her sandwich. Fine. Take a bite. Dennis grinned widely. He took a large bite out of it, and I mean a really lot. Lucy smacked his head. Too much. You bit too much. Love you too. Dennis planted a kiss on her cheek, smearing it with sauce. Lucy scrunched her nose up, EW. Dennis turned on his heel and ran to his car before Lucy could catch up to him. Why do boys have such big mouths? She asked me quietly, so that it fits their big heads. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She laughed loudly. That is true. Then we saw Sam and Edward sitting in the living room. Hey guys. Sam greeted in her soft voice. Hey girl. Lucy waved. We were looking for you to go get breakfast. Sam said, sounding disappointed. But looks like you already got it. I set the extra sandwich on her lap. We went to get one for you. Oh thanks. She smiled gratefully. She unwrapped the sandwich as we sat down. She bit into it hungrily. She offered some to Edward, who also took a large bite. Sam didn't seem to mind, but I saw a small glare thrown at him. Then Ashton came in the room shirtless and his wet hair was flopped messy onto his head, telling me that he'd just come out of the shower. With food. He went to me and made a move to take a bite of my sandwich. I maneuvered it away from him, making him whine. Why aren't you cleaning the kitchen? I asked skeptically. Brandon came back and my mother decided to punish him because he is the soon-to-be alpha and he was being irresponsible. So the twins and I get to go whilst he cleans the rest by himself. He was still leaning over me, much too close for my comfort. I put a hand on his chest and quickly pushed him away. Space bubble. I told him. We don't need space bubbles. We're mates. We can be as close to each other as possible. With that, he picked me up and sat on the couch, bringing me with him. I tried getting up, but his arms would tighten when I move. Knowing I won't win, I rested my head on his chest. I first made myself comfortable by shifting around on his lap, trying to find a comfortable spot. Riley, Ashton's pained voice startled me. Yes, you have to stop moving. He got out, his breathing becoming ragged. Why? I asked, confused. Riley, Lucy's highly amused voice said. You're giving the poor boy a hard time controlling little Ashton. What are you? Ooh, I blushed. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Thoughts up thanks to your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Are you okay? Ashton forced on a pained smile. Yes, I'm fine. A little excited, but fine. Sorry. I mumbled again. Do you want a bite of my sandwich? Feed me. He opened his mouth and waited for me. I gingerly stuffed the sandwich into his mouth. He moaned at the taste. Don't get too dirty with the sandwich. Now, Lucy said. Your girlfriend is on your lap. Edward let out a bark of laughter, and Sam tried suppressing her giggles. Ashton stuck his tongue out at her childishly. I resumed feeding Ashton until Dennis came into the room. I got Starbucks, he exclaimed. One for each couple. He distributed the drinks to the 5 of us. He gave one to Ashton and I, one to Sam and Edward, and one for him and Lucy. Don't drink everything. What's with white girls and Starbucks anyway? Dennis complained. Lucy cackled and slurped another gulp of iced coffee. Aren't we supposed to out to train? I think we can skip this one time, Ashton said. Are you sure? Positive. But not long after. Spencer, Jamie, Ben, and Cole came into the room. Ashton's eyes landed on Ben, and he glared at him. What are you doing? Spencer seethed. What is my sister doing on your lap? Please tell me she's not giving you a lap dance. Not. I did, panting. You are supposed to be outside training, Ben said, crossing his arms. Do we have to? Dennis winced. He was cuddled into Lucy's side. Her hand played with his shaggy blonde head and his head rested on her lap. I was just about to sleep. No, get up. Time to get muscle, Ben said, pointing at all of us. Well, maybe Sam and Edward are the only exception. Edward smiled smugly as we groaned. Lucy pointed to Edward. Go clean up the shack with the silver. Leave your girlfriend here to continue her studies on medical stuff. Now Edward groaned. What? Why? Because you have to do work as well. Lucy smiled happily. Have fun. Chapter 37, Nathan's mate Riley's POV. I was lying around lazily, listening to Nathan babble on about his unknown mate. My feet rested on his lap and my torso leaned against Ashton. I bet you would be smart. Beautiful. Charming. Beautiful. Kind. Beautiful. Nathan kept rambling on about how his mate would be. You repeated beautiful 3 times. I pointed out. Because she's going to be beautiful, Nathan said dreamily. Like Riley. Ashton piped up. I blushed at his comment. Yup, just like Riley. Nathan looked at me suggestively. I playfully pushed him with my foot. Ashton growled protectively. She's mine. I'm just kidding, Nathan said, putting his hands up defensively. Ashton glared at Nathan whilst I laughed at the both of them. We didn't notice the living room door until someone whispered. We froze. The 3 of us were the only ones in the room. Ashton and I were mates. So there is only one person who is mateless, Nathan. Our heads slowly turned to see the shaking girl standing in the doorway. Aaron, I said in confusion. Ashton and I looked at Nathan to Aaron. They seemed to be in their own little world. For some reason, Erin wasn't wearing any makeup. She must be too lazy to put on those layers of cosmetics. Nathan was the first one to snap out of the trance. His eyes went from love to embarrassment to anger. He abruptly stood up and left. Erin's eyes followed him, and when he brushed past her, pain flashed in her eyes. For once in my life, I felt truly sorry for the girl. She was just ignored by her mate. How could anyone do that? It was silent for a few seconds. Then Ashton stood up. You'll go talk to him. He gently brushed his lips over my forehead and followed Nathan. Ian was still rooted on the spot. Even when Ashton walked past her, she didn't jump into action to try and flirt. We stay in awkward silence for a while. Why don't you sit down? I ask softly. Yes, I Riley Thompson. Am being nice to Erin. The girl who tried to take my man away. Erin didn't move. But slowly, she took tiny steps and made her way to sit on the couch opposite from me. We didn't say anything after that. If you said that this was awkward, that would be a major understatement. So, how's your grandparents? How's life treating you? I tried starting a conversation. She stayed silent before saying, Did he just reject me? I pressed my lips together. I don't think so. I would be shocked if he did. He was waiting for you his whole life. But before you left, how did you not know that he was your mate? A few weeks ago, he was still 15. He went away for a couple more weeks and I think that was when he had his birthday. When he came back, it already left for my grandparents' house. I also had my birthday a week ago. I nodded my head in understanding. You know, I never thought you'd ever have a civilized conversation with you. She managed to crack a smile. Not a smirk or a sneer. A pretty and genuine smile. Ashton's POV. It was easy finding Nathan. I just followed the shouts of Jessica giving Nate a pep talk. I know you are wondering, what is Jessica doing outside? I thought she's supposed to be unconscious. What is Nathan doing with her? I should let you know that Jessica is a rebel. She won't obey anyone, except for my dad. And you know what I had to help Jessica and Penny, Jessica's best human friend, build their treehouse. Well, since Nathan I had to help. We insisted that we were allowed to go inside as well. Nathan rarely goes there, unless I go to terrorize them. I love watching Penny react to the smallest things I do while Jessica scolds her. It's really funny. There was once we came back from a run, and we were shirtless. Penny almost fainted, and Jessica nagged at us to put shirts on. I went to the thick base tree and began climbing. Jessica must have pulled up the ladder. When I got to underside of the porch, I stuck my hand up and gripped the wooden floor. Get yourself together, Jessica shouted. If she's a slut, Nate growled. Don't you growl at me. Boys, he warned. I know you are thinking that and at the same time think that she's beautiful. I can read your mind. Literally. I pulled myself up with ease. Next time, save me the hassle and leave the ladder down. Penny let out a surprised squeak and a blush crept up her face. Jessica narrowed her eyes at her best friend before turning to me. You never know who I'll attack. Rouges could climb the ladder, you know. They can climb the tree as well. I retaliated. Whatever. She huffed in annoyance. You aren't supposed to be out here. I don't obey orders. Remember, Penny has to obey the Alpha's rules. She may be human, but she is living in the same house. I could just zap us back in a few milliseconds. No, you won't. This morning didn't go so well. You could still be lagging energy, and what would make it more tiring to zap back is that we are really far away from the pack house. Jessica scowled and crossed her arms over her chest. I hate it when you're smarter than me. And I will always be. Nathan cleared his throat, reminding us that this was supposed to be about him. Anyways, off topic. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. So you didn't reject Taryn, right? No, I couldn't. I would never. Nathan shook his head rapidly. I nodded in relief. Good. You have no idea how painful half of a rejection is. The first meeting Riley thing. Jessica snickered. You were like some lovesick puppy who got his heart broken. I didn't dare say this then, but him saying it now. You looked like an alcoholic deprived of sleep, who died and returned as a zombie. Thanks a lot, I said sarcastically. You're welcome, she chirped. Off topic. Again, I muttered. I turned to Nathan. You know, you hurt her feelings. Right. You just went out. totally ignoring her, even after she'd just found her mate. That's a great way to discourage her. Oh shit. Nathan jumped off the treehouse, landing on both his feet. Where are you going? Apologize and possibly mock her. Nathan called back. See you later. He dashed off. When he said mock her, did he mean bite her neck or the other one? Jessica asked. I really don't know. I mumbled. Riley's POV, the living room door burst open, cutting off air in. She was telling me about her visit to her grandparents. Apparently, they didn't like it when she had on so much makeup. So, whenever she went to visit, they forbid her from bringing makeup, putting on makeup. Erin was actually really nice once you gave her a chance. The reason why she was so sluttish was because she was afraid of being rejected. She wanted to feel wanted. I guess she has always been ignored for the majority of her life, even though she's the soon-to-be third in command. Nathan stood at the doorway, counting heavily. Obviously, he had ran from wherever he was, all the way here. He took 2 large strides towards her. I sat back and watched quietly, Erin cowered in fear of what Nathan might do to her. I know the thoughts running through her head right now was about rejection. Nathan knelt in front of her and grabbed her face, smashing his lips onto hers. She froze, obviously in shock. I grinned and quietly exited. I saw Ashton and Penny and Jessica enter the back door, and with the grin still on my face, I jumped into Ashton's arms and kissed his cheek. Whatever you said to Nate must be been encouraging. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I think I did 75% of the encouragement, Jessica said, blowing on her nails. I, after all, give really good pep talks. I think after 13 years, all the boys' cockiness has rubbed off of you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She scoffed. Honey, I was born fabulous. Okay, enough arrogance for the day. Ashton said. PSH, you wish you were half of this. Jessica pointed to herself confidently. You can leave now, Ashton said with narrowed eyes. Jessica smirked at him. You know you want to be me. Then she spun on her heel and left. Penny followed shortly behind, giving us a small wave. That girl, Ashton said, shaking his head. I like Jessica. I know. Everyone likes her. She can get anyone to like her, even strangers. He shook his head again. Sometimes, most of the time, all the cockiness seeps into her head and expands her ego. Let her have fun. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She's only just entering her teenage stage. I took his hand and massaged it gently. I just don't want her to embarrass herself in the future. She's smart. She'll know a good comeback that will leave her opposer speechless. And you are thinking of the future way too soon. I do that a lot, he grumbled. I think it's cute that you care about your sister a lot. Maybe it was lighting, but I think he blushed. Do you think we should check on Erin and Nate, just in case they are doing something they aren't supposed to do? Let's ruin their party. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Quickly jumping at the chance of embarrassing his best friend, we crept to the living room door and peeked inside. Erin was comfortably sitting on Nathan's lap. Her head rested on his shoulders. They were talking softly. They would occasionally show affection and give each other a kiss. I jumped when I felt Ashton's arms circle my waist. Do we ruin a moment? He asked into my ear. How before my words could properly form the word, Ashton picked me up and went in. I squealed and threw my arms around his neck. Erin quickly jumped off Nathan, but his arms acted as an anchor and they prevented her from moving. Her face flushed bright red and she looked away. Just making sure that you guys are keeping everything PG, Ashton said dismissively. Nathan scowled. Annoyance flashed in his eyes. Erin blushed even more. Her face now looked like a tomato. Put me down, I said, wiggling in his grasp. No, Ashton. Put me down, I insisted. No, he said stubbornly. You are so stupid, I muttered. But I am your stupid boy, he said, sending me a heart-melting smile. I said, kissing him, EW. A familiar voice said. I broke the kiss and saw Justin sit on the couch. You're out, I gasped, and Ashton reluctantly set me on the ground. I tackled Justin in a hug. He winced and I immediately retracted. But his arms tight and around me. Just be careful with my stomach, he said softly. Other than that, I finally left the hospital. Unfortunately, I need to always have a doctor with me to check on the stitches and prevent me from doing something that might make the stitches break. Who's the doctor? Me. I turned and saw Lucy standing in the doorway. Unfortunately, Justin mumbled. I heard that. Lucy scowled. You were meant to. Justin shot back. What's happening? Jack and Carly stepped into the room, observing all our positions. Ashton watching Justin and Lucy quarrel. Me with my arms around Justin, and Aaron cuddled next to Nathan. Are you two? Jake let the question hang in the air. Nathan coughed uncomfortably. Yes, we are mates. Carly let out an audible gasp, then squealed yes. The batter and finally found their mate. I know, Jessica said, appearing out of nowhere. She really needs to make more noise. She's appearing everywhere. The first time Nathan told me, I nearly fainted. Just kidding. I don't faint. I just gasped. Did I just hear that Nathan found his mate? Taryn and Haley arrived as well as Mr. and Mrs. Beta baited and shot me a withering look, which I glared at him with the same amount of intensity. Are you already cheating on Ashton with that blonde boy? Ashton clenched his jaw and his hands balled into fists. And what if she is? Lucy snapped, getting into his face. He said nothing, clearly not expecting her to answer. Oh honey, I'm so happy you found your mate. Mrs. Beta squealed, purposely ignoring what her mate had said. Look at her. She's beautiful. Look at this long hair. Aaron, I am so happy you're my baby boy's mate, Mrs. Cross continued gushing over Aaron mum. Nathan groaned, trying to hide his face in embarrassment. I'm so glad you guys don't do that. I sighed happily. We can, you know, Justin said. Lucy plopped down in front of me. That's right. I could be your mother and Dennis your father. I scrunched my nose up. EW. No thanks. You being my best friend is enough. Being my mother. Tu es agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Logan. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Dennis doesn't act his age anyway. Just think about it, Lucy said, patting my knee. You'll have for uncles and a brother to embarrass you. Not to mention your mom and dad. I think you'll just have 5 guy friends, all of which act as my brother, one brother, and one girlfriend, who is the only one supporting my choice in relationships. If you say so. Lucy shrugged. During dinner, the new couple was sitting very close together, and many pack members were congratulating them. My gang just stood to the side to wonder what the big deal was about a mate. I stood among them and watched as my mate clapped his best friend's back and let out a strong hearty laugh. Jared silently stood beside me. Do you think it's suspicious that the Rogers haven't attacked yet? He asked after a while. That has been bothering me for quite a while, I said thoughtfully. Do you think they're planning something involving Bridget? Worry laced in his words. I hesitated to answer. I think so. He ran his hand through his hair, frustrated lie. What are we doing here? We are waiting for them to attack. Every day they are torturing her. Every day. And we are sitting right here doing goddamn nothing. I quickly looked around, noticing some people's heads were turned. Well, take this outside. I grabbed his hand and quickly led him out. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He yelled, cursed, punched whatever he could get his hands on. I stood a safe distance away, making sure not to get in the way of his punch. Once He vented everything out, we went back inside for dinner. Ashton gave me a curious look, which I ignored. He got the idea that I was gonna talk about it, so he stayed silent. Smart boy. After dinner, I went to take a shower. I came out of my room with a towel wrapped around my body. I quickly changed into some comfortable pajamas. The blood in my face drained when I saw the single blood red rose and the letter on my nightstand. My name was neatly scrawled on the envelope. My breath became shallow and I approached it cautiously. I am quite sure it wasn't there the last time. I picked it up and opened it. I silently read the letter, biting my lip harder after each sentence. Looks like we need to bring our female sacrifice to Paul. I thought bitterly to myself as I made my way to Ben's room. Chapter 38. Good to see you, Riley's POV. I was surprised when a pack member told me that there was many rouges at the south of the territory. Most wolves, including Ashton, left to go investigate. Once, I knew everyone else was either sleeping or watching TV. Ben and I snuck out the back without telling anyone. We were silent when walking. When we heard something, we paused before continuing. I'd check my watch from time to time. Ben clutched the paper in his hand tightly. We can do this, I whispered encouragingly. I just hope everything goes well. Ben muttered. We better speed things up before someone finds out and start looking for us. We reached the north clearing and waited. I stuck close to Ben, waiting for something to jump out and eat me. A rustling noise made me flinch and run behind Ben, who stood as a protective wall. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Lean figure emerged from the trees. We waited in anticipation, holding our breaths. Hello, Ben, Riley. So good to see the both of you again. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Ben nodded his head stiffly. Paul's figure finally stepped into the moonlit patch of grass. He had a sinister smirk on and his eyes held mischief and evil. His dark hair styled into perfection, not a single strand out of place. His piercing grey eyes captured mine and it seemed like he could see right through me. Where's the girl? Ben asked, maintaining his cool facade. Paul clicked his tongue at Ben, always in such a rush. Benjamin. Then she shouted into the shadows. Bring the girl out. Two men emerged, carrying a body. The closer they came, the clearer the body was. It was Bridget. My breath caught in my throat. Beautiful? Cole asked. To Badges already scarred and bruised. Otherwise, she would have looked exactly like her beautiful cousin. Bridget's face had purplish patches and she had dried blood stuck in her hair. She had tear stains on her cheeks and her hair was choppy, telling me that he had to cut it herself. Cut slitted her bare arms and legs. Now that you have the girl, Paul said with a malicious look in his eyes, give Riley to me. Remember, a fair trade. Just like the plan. You can do this. Ben said, gently squeezing my shoulder. I felt like crying. I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave my family behind to stay with this sicko. I turned to Ben and quickly gave him a tight hug. I hope I see you soon. I whispered. You know that I'd have to tell them the truth. We'll find you, Ben said, returning the hug. Right. I'm waiting, Paul said. I reluctantly walked towards Paul and his two cronies. Why? My head whipped around and I saw a sight that tore my heart into pieces. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And everyone I knew stood behind me. I had a twinge of hope that they could kill Paul and I didn't have to follow him. But Date was on my side. More rouges and hunters appeared, clearly outnumbering us. There were many different expressions on people's faces. Ashton's face was one of crushed hope. WH, what are you doing? That's Paul. She knows. Dumbass. Paul snapped. Lucy's face was full of regret. I knew it. It was you. Wasn't it? You are the girl you and planned to give. I nodded sadly. Spencer's face masked into one of anger. Why did you tell me? You wouldn't let me go. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. B. Bridget. Jared stuttered. There was no response. TH, that's Bridget. She's alive. Ashton began approaching Paul. The hunters got their guns ready. Wait. Frantically. Don't shoot him. Incoming. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I quickly went to stand beside Paul and he put his arm around my shoulder. I tried not to shy away from the contact. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Obviously noticing my discomfort, growled. Why didn't you tell me? Shouldn't I deserve to know? Jared asked. I know you'd feel guilty if I told you it was to bring Bridget back. But get Bridget. Bring her to the pack doctor right away. She needs to be checked up on. We're not leaving without you, Lucy said. I could see the guilt cloud in her eyes. You can't win. Paul said. Say your last goodbyes before I take my new leader to her new home. Kinda, Spencer said, looking at me in the eyes. I nodded. Take Bridget. It'll be fine. I am. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Thompson, you look familiar, Jamie said, pointing to one of the men standing beside Paul. Yes, I know. You were the one who shot me. Remember? The Rouge said. Oh yeah. You were the one who told us your plan. Jamie beamed back. When he recalled the memory. What did he just say? Paul asked, giving the poor guy the evil eye. I might be. Accidentally. Told them the plan. The Rouge stuttered. Paul shook his head in disbelief. Why are Rouges so stupid? Hey oops. We stayed here for too long. Time to go. Riley. Goodbye everyone else. Ashton growled and approached again. Paul was faster and took his gun out. I felt the cool tip touch my temple. Everyone froze. Move again. I pulled the trigger. Paul said venomous lie. My breathing labored till I closed my eyes, trying to remain calm. Ashton's eyes flashed with panic. Don't pull the trigger. You meet her. Anyways. You wouldn't kill her. Ben said. Oh, I would. Paul sneered, pressing the gun against my head. I let out a weak whimper, flinching. She's just the strongest one I've found so far. Lucy looked like she was on the verge of crying. Dennis gave me a worried look, silently asking if I was okay. I struggled to give him a small smile. Shall we go home? I asked Paul, my voice shaking. Paul smirked. Yes, we will. Once someone knocks your boyfriend out cold. Choose your person. Riley. I looked at Jared. He nodded and went behind Ashton. Ashton backed away from Jared. Don't you dare. Ashton rocked to the ground. Out cold. Lucy stood behind him, her hands floating in the air, telling me that she'd knocked him out the easy and painless way. She looked at me with guilty eyes. Sorry, I didn't know. She mouthed. You'll find me. I smiled encouragingly. Paul's arms turned me around so that my back was to my family. I bowed my head down and let the tears flow silently. I took a quick glance at them for what might be the last time. Ben, Dennis, and Jamie stood to the side watching quietly. Lucy was leaning in to call for support and she covered her mouth, smothering the sob she was trying to contain. Jared had a blank expression on his face and Spencer was shaking his head. My eyes landed on Ashton, who was lying on the ground. I silently said bye and followed Paul to wherever he was taking me. Ashton's POV. I punched the wall again, caving it in. Lucy hiccuped behind me.
She apologized yet again.
But I had to. Ryle, don't say her name. I had finally awoken and they dumped all the information on me. Paul escaped. We got Bridget back. And Riley's gone. She slipped right through my fingers. When we reached the south part of our territory, the Rouges let us capture them easily. That made me suspicious. Then I felt nervousness through the mate link. I barely felt it, but it was there. I immediately ran back to the pack house to find Riley gone. I alerted everyone and we followed my wolf's directions to where my mate was. I let out another frustrated yell and punched the wall again. Why am I so stupid? I should have known. Lucy buried her head in her hands and cried. I should have known. I had a suspicion that it was her when she first shared it. Yuji him so stupid. She began hitting herself over and over again. Lucy, Cole said, crying her hands away. Lucy, calm down. If we are gonna get her back, we have to be able to think straight. Easy for you, say. Lucy hissed. You barely knew her. I was her best friend. Her best friend. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I knew what she was thinking but didn't bother stopping her. What kind of best friend is that? Let their best friend go to hell. I've already done that twice. She laughed hysterically. I also let Bridget suffer. I didn't really try helping her when it was clear that she was very disturbed. Then what happens because of that? She gets her death faked and gets tortured for 2 years. I don't want to repeat the same mistake I made 2 years ago. Then don't make the same mistake. Look for her. Brandon said coming into the room. Bridget woke up a few minutes ago. Jared is trying to get some information out of her. She seems to be quite off her rocker at the moment. But the doctor said that once she calms down, we'll be able to get more stuff out of her. I want to see her. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I don't care. I have to see her. I insisted. Brandon hesitated, then said, Follow me. He led me down the hospital's hallways and stopped at a door. He knocked lightly, then opened it. Can Ashton come in? I heard whispering. Who's Ashton? Feminine voice asked. I almost barged in when I thought it was Riley. That girl sounded so much like Riley, except that her voice didn't send shivers down my spine. Ashton is Riley's boyfriend. Another hushed voice said, Jared, I have never heard that boy talk to someone so tenderly. I could practically hear the love bouncing off his voice. I felt a tsunami of jealousy flood my body. That could be me and Riley right now. If Paul hadn't decided to show up. He can come in. Bridget, Tess' voice said. I entered and my breath caught in my throat. Bridget almost looked like a spit image of Riley. They had the same dark silky hair, soft-looking lips, and bright blue eyes. Hello. I nodded in greeting. Hi, she said shyly. Her hand was tightly clutched in Jared's arm. I was wondering, could I ask you a few questions? I think you can, but the doctor said not to ask too many questions. Bridget mumbled. How does the place look like? I immediately jumped into action. It looks like an abandoned house from the outside. Bridget had to think hard. She bit her lip and concentrated. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It's grand and old. The jail cells are rusted. Guards are always guarding the door, son. Wherever you look, there is always a gunner or dog. The place is like a fort. It is huge and can easily get lost in it. That makes it hard for prisoners to escape. Do you know where it is? No, I haven't seen the sun in 2 years. Only artificial light. Do you mind sharing the tortures that they did? She began crying. She curled up into a ball and screamed when Jared touched her. Shh, he said softly. Bridget, it's all okay. You're safe. I'm right here. I will protect you. Don't you worry. Jared gathered her in his arms and whispered comfort in her ear. I took it as my cue to leave. I got a good enough picture of what they did to her. I'm just hoping that they don't do the same to Riley. Riley's POV. I let out a cry of pain as a rouge roughly shoved me into a small cramped cell. My head bounced against the ground hard. I whimpered and sat up holding my head. The rouge towered over me, smirking, and I looked up at him with wide eyes. "Oh, is the little princess scared?" he cooed. I didn't answer him and looked away. He grabbed my chin and forced me to look at him. He examined my face. "Pretty face you have." He chuckled darkly. "Too bad we will be messing it up for the next few days." Then he sniffed. "Eureka, Alpha." I stayed silent. "Can you speak?" he asked truly. I nodded. "Then why don't you talk?" "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm," Cole said, gently patting the rouge's oi head. "Don't want to scare your soon-to-be female leader." "Right." Caleb nodded like a child who was told that it was time to go to bed. Then Cole had an evil look across his face. "Besides, it invited someone special to join us. He had contacted me that he would like to see his dear Riley again. He's going to arrive any moment now." A ringing noise came from Paul's jeans. He answered his phone and smiled. "We are in the basement cells." He snapped his phone shut and smiled coyly. "He has just arrived," he said cheerfully. I gulped. Who could he be talking about? There was a knock on a door further up the hallway, where the line of cells started. Paul gasped in fake excitement. "Looks like he is here." He clapped his hands in forced joy. "Let him in." Caleb nodded and left. I heard a metal door being unlocked and someone shouting. Then there was heavy footsteps and a dark shadow stepped into the cell I was in. My blood ran cold and my heart had temporarily stopped beating for a moment. All the blood in my face had drained so it looked like I'd seen a ghost. Standing there in my cell, in all his alcoholic stretch and stained clothes, was my father. "It's so good to see you again, Riley. Daddy missed you so much."